Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Star Fox 64 3D. We're doing the medium route levels this time, so this is metal requirements at the bottom there, which means that I'm doing it via like the challenge mode, where you just start at the level.
Yeah, you see, a level select basically.
Yeah, so I don't have to worry about, playing through Corneria 3 times, getting the requirements to get here, etc., etc.
I even forget, like, what did you have to initiate in the first level to start another route? I know it has something to do with Falco.
You have to say Falco and then fly through the archways.
Right. Because it wasn't enough to say, yeah, because Falco's the one that shows you how to do that.
Well,
if you save
Well,
him.
no, he's just like, hey, Fox, check this out. And he just flies through with it.
Right.
And you're like, cool, dude, whatever.
Neat. Anyway, ignores him.
Like, maybe this is just me being a dumbass. I always found some of the requirements to get the secret exits in this game to be a little cryptic. Like, I get that Falco shows you, hey, fly under this arch. And I'm like, neat. But I never thought to, like, go under all of them. Like, I was just like, why would I bother doing that? I just dodged them.
Because it's cool.
I mean, sure. I guess.
Yeah, because that's the basis of it, isn't it? Like, you say Falco flies under the archways, and you fly under the archways too. And I think because he's impressed, he shows you a different way. I think that's the basis behind it.
Falco, we're in a war.
Gotta style all over our opponents,
Yeah.
Fox.
Go to Falco all over these guys. Don't say that.
I'm gonna make it a verb if I die trying.
My favorite part of Star Falco was when he said it's Falco time and Falco'd all over everybody.
Yeah. You just got Falco. I don't know what that means.
Be glad you don't.
So yeah, one movie came out right the year before this got released.
Interesting.
Not even remotely subtle with this one, Nintendo.
I'll tell you, man. Like, I wish I experienced this though instead of the actual Independence game on the fucking PlayStation 1, because that game is garbage.
The AVGN did a video about that years and years ago, right?
Did he?
I think
I think.
so. Because I remember it being like the most, like, painful looking game I've ever seen in my life.
This thing, like, it was just very aesthetically unpleasing. Like, it was military Star Fox, if that makes any sense. Like, it was just visually very bland, like, even for PlayStation 1 standards.
Everything looked like really gray from what I remember, and like,
Yeah.
there was just not really anything going on at all.
It also, from my recollection, again, it has been decades. I don't recall that game having a soundtrack.
It doesn't
Like,
have music.
outside
You're
of-
right. That's the
Yeah.
AVGN points that out, that there's no music. And for action games like this, like, even if it's not particularly good music, the worst thing to have is like silence.
Yeah.
You know, because it just you want silence if you're doing something like Microsoft Flight Simulator. You know, where you're just like, vibing.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Not when you're fighting the alien hordes and defending Corneria for their Independence Day. Or I actually have never seen the movie. I don't know what happens.
Independence Day? I mean,
It's a movie, all right.
yeah, I would say that movie lives and dies by its visual effects.
Which it's 1996, so
Well, 96, they were really groundbreaking at the time. But nowadays, it's just, just pretty generic, all things considered. My favorite scene is when fucking Will Smith opened up the alien cockpit and punches Chris Rock in the face.
welcome to Earth.
So, in order to get the best score in this, do you have to like leave the thing alive and spend more time just shooting mooks in order to get a higher?
I am not sure I don't have the medal for this stage.
Oh,
That's actually
not a fan of the
that's
movie.
actually a thing in Trauma Center. In one of the Trauma Center games, in order to get the best rank on one of the levels, you have to let the alien cancers live and cause more wounds for you to heal. Because if you do it as fast as possible, you will not have enough stuff to do in order to get the points you need. Which is kind of like dumb. I'm gonna just say that it's kind of dumb.
Doctor, are you going to suture up the wound now?
Hold on a moment.
With this current score?
The
No.
patient's got to lose another liter of blood first before I do it. So, Nurse, pass me the
How
soda.
do you have a fucking medical license? Medical
You think
license.
that they have a medical license in the trauma center universe? Oh man,
We had to go to school?
have you seen the Oh, I forget his name, but the guy who does all the Sonic parodies video on this level?
I don't.
Okay, then
I don't.
I'll show it to you after the. I'll show it to you.
Okay, yeah, because I'm drawing a blank.
Okay.
That there's a lot of folks out there that does Sonic parodies.
All right, I'll look it up for you.
Holy fuck! I forgot how much of a glow up this stage got on the 3D
Yeah.
version. Because like this stage is like in the original game. If you weren't playing it on original hardware, what you got in its stead in a virtual console and beyond was like very very fucking visually bland.
Wait, so it,
Like
it
Lava
looks
Planet
better
stage.
on the N64 cart versus Virtual Console?
Yes.
Oh, really?
For some reason or another, they couldn't emulate the luminosity of the lava, so it looks very dull.
That's interesting. I mean, for the 3DS, this is definitely impressive. Like,
Yeah.
they're looking at like all sorts of like light, like the lighting generally in this game as a whole is pretty damn good, all things considered. And since the viewpoint's pretty constrained, they're also allowed to have pretty good texture quality and model detail too, which is something that a lot of 3DS games struggle with.
No, that's the thing. The thing with 3DS though is that a lot of the graphical fidelity of 3DS, I believe, was carried by its textures and like lighting engine. Again, because what originally sold me at the 3DS was like, holy shit, like this handheld could do shit, was Resident Evil Revelations.
Oh yeah, that game looks gorgeous on 3DS.
That game looked fucking amazing for that handheld, and I think more than anything show what the 3DS is capable of.
Yeah, like in terms of raw power, the 3DS generally puts out images like not quite at GameCube level, but pretty damn close, all things considered. I think, unfortunately, like the main gimmick of the hardware, the 3D, is part of what kind of killed what it could have done. Because the way the 3D works is that the system renders the same image twice. So it's basically, we're effectively, this is only 50% of my power. Which is why so many later 3DS games just don't even bother having the 3D enabled. I think partially because they released the 2DS, and that must have sold well enough that they didn't want to have a feature for a small portion of their player base, but also it's like if they wanted to do stuff that looked better, they just had to axe the 3D because it wouldn't look that good. It's also much more common if you're playing with 3D on to have like frame rate drops and stuff like that.
Yeah, because it required more rendering power,
Yeah.
I believe. But the 3D feature of the 3DS is always funny to me because it's very clear that even after a year, just a year in, developers stopped giving a shit about it. Like it always just seemed like an obligation to fulfill, not necessarily something that was incorporated into like a game's like foundation.
Well, there's just not much you can really do for it. Like it's not something like motion controls where you could feasibly find something interesting to do with it. It's not a way to interact with the game. It's just a way to look at it. So it's like, if this runs in 3D, cool, but it's not like it's neat. Like New Super Mario Brothers or like another 2D platformer, for example. How much does 3D really help that experience? Not really. Like, not a lot.
No, not even 3D Land. I found much use out of it.
3D Land, at the very least, loved those like optical illusion rooms that when you were in 3D, you could see like where the thing was hidden, which was something. Was it like a cool something? Debatable, but it was something.
Again, they made a version of the 3DS where the 3D wasn't a thing.
That I think was more for accessibility and price, because the 3D was not something they recommended, I think, kids under 8 to use, if I
Right.
remember correctly. And there's a lot of 6-year-olds out there who want to play Pokemon. So you want to have a cheaper version of that to sell to primarily a child audience.
I have no doubt that accessibility was a part in it. I like to think everyone just stopped giving a shit.
I definitely agree that the 3D craze died out a lot in the early 2010s.
Yes.
I mean, granted, I still think that there's cool stuff that like the 3D adds. Like, I legitimately think that this probably looks this game in particular probably looks pretty good with the 3D turned on, just because of the viewpoint. Like, you're viewing off into the distance, like looking out ahead of you. Like, that probably looks pretty rad in 3D if you're down for that experience. I also just know a lot of people aren't down for that experience because they get headaches from the 3DS's 3D. So, it just depends on what you're looking for. It certainly wasn't like a feature that I would miss too much if they took it out. Like, if the only DS I could ever play again was a 2DS, I wouldn't lose too much sleep over that.
I have to wonder what this game will look like on an emulator with the resolution cranked up. That wouldn't do much for the backgrounds, but the model quality, I have to wonder. Like, how much better would this game look?
I don't know, because the resolution is probably the 3DS's worst.
Yeah. I only say that because, remember, a couple of years ago when we were doing a commentary on one of the Kirby 3DS games, and I think Ant showed us like footage of that same game on a 3DS emulator with the resolution cranked up, and it looked like a fucking Wii U game.
I mean, I think that the Kirby, both Kirby 3DS games are among the best looking games on the console. I think both of them look better than their Wii counterpart, for what that's worth. But yeah, it's definitely, the resolution's definitely the kind of limiting factor for it, because I forget what resolution it runs at. Hold on.
It's a very awkward resolution that makes it a pain to edit.
Oh, dude, I hate editing. Editing dual screen games in general is just a pain in the ass.
My editing software hated running two screens at the same time, which is why I don't have the bottom screen on for After Part 1.
Yeah, it's 800 by 240 if you include both screens. Yeah, because
weird
it
fucking
has
TV.
to. Yeah, so it's 400 by 240 pixels per eye. But because of the 3D effect, it's 800 by 240, which is so bizarre. But yeah, I remember when we did Kid Icarus Uprising, the worst editing job I've ever done in my entire life. Fun fact, when editing Kid Icarus Uprising, there were several points when, like, my editing software would just, like, blank out one of the screens. And it wouldn't show me that in the preview, but it certainly did do it during processing, and then I'd have to process the whole thing again. Oh, God, it sucks. But yeah, man, it is kind of weird not having this sort of game console anymore, though. Like, this sort of exclusively handheld place where smaller games get to live. Have you guys kind of noticed that too, in that there's just some sort of games that you just don't see anymore now that there's no real dedicated hardware?
No, because the indie scene exists.
I guess that's fair. I don't keep too big of a track on indies these days, just because.
It's not always the end all be all issue though with indies. Like, that market is so saturated that it's really hard to find the actual good shit.
Like fan fiction.
You just have to go. Yeah. Actually, speaking of, no, but like, no doubt there are probably countless indie titles that emulate or just straight up do better what we're playing now, but you will never know of it because it's just lost in the sea of other stuff.
Yeah, especially
You
if
have
you're,
to go off
Especially
recommendations.
this year.
Yeah.
Hey, I guess in the topic of like Star Fox like S games, X Zodiac,
Yeah.
like
Is that an indie Star Fox alike?
yes,
Okay.
it's also very fun.
Okay. Oh man, it's just like okay, but you're right though in that like stuff gets lost. Like occasionally you have a breakout indie hit like Hollow Knight or Shovel Knight or
Night.
Night. Or like what's that the other game called? The Undertale, God. that one.
Right, yeah, just small idiots.
Yeah, small indie game, Undertale. You probably
I
haven't
mean,
heard of it.
it was like originally.
Undertale, from what I remember, was one of those things that was like a small Kickstarter that exploded, versus like, if I remember Shovel Knight correctly, the Kickstarter had a fairly modest goal and then exceeded all expectations. And if I know way less about Undertale, but I believe it was a small Kickstarter that blew up once the game fully released. If I remember correctly, I don't have the best memory. Who are
I
you?
couldn't tell you. I didn't play that game until after it was well established.
Yeah. Is that the last Landmaster level, Ryan?
Yep, there's only 2 in this game.
Okay. Do people hate the Landmaster still?
No,
Okay.
they only hate it in Smash Brothers.
Oh, okay. Landmaster. Personally, I prefer your mom.
My mom is dead, Falco.
Oh.